at a conference a week or so ago here in New York. You said playing ball for Wall Street has become a normal way of life, despite the panic of 2008. What does it mean, playing ball for Wall Street?
Well, what I saw when I was in Washington was this real pressure on myself, on other regulators, to essentially keep their tone down. And I was told point blank by Assistant Secretary of the Treasury that this is about in 2010. And he said to me, he said, "Neil, you're a smart guy, you're a young guy, you're a talented guy, you got your whole future in front of you, you got a young family that's starting out, but you're doing yourself real harm. And the reason why you're doing yourself real harm is the harsh tone that I had towards the government as well as to Wall Street based on what I was seeing down in Washington." And he told me that that if I wanted to get a job out on the street afterwards, it was going to really be hard for me.
You mean on Wall Street?
Yes. And I explained to him that I wasn't really interested in that. And he said, well, maybe a judgeship, maybe an appointment from the Obama administration for a federal judgeship. And I said, well, again, that would be great, but I don't really think that's going to happen with my criticisms. And he said, it didn't have to be that way. If all you do is soften your tone, be a little bit more upbeat, all this stuff can happen for you. And that's what I meant by playing ball. I was essentially told, play ball, soften your tone, and all of these good things can happen to you. But if you stay harsh, that was going to cause me real harm in those words.
What made you able to say no to the temptation?
Well, I think part of it is the only job I ever wanted was to be a federal prosecutor.
Send bad guys to jail.
It doesn't get much better than that. Really interesting, complicated work, and wear the white hat. So I didn't have those incentives that I think that were presented. And I think, look, being trained in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, I was trained to be a government employee and to take my oath of office very seriously. But I wasn't really interested in their reindeer games, and I felt a real obligation and sense of duty to fulfill the oath that I took in Secretary Paulson's office on December 15, 2008, to do the job that I was sent down there to do. But I wasn't really tempted with a big job on Wall Street, and frankly, if it meant to getting a judgeship of compromising the job that I needed to do and was supposed to do, it just wasn't interesting to me. But look, let me be very clear, I also have the fallback of I was a trial lawyer, I prosecuted a lot of big cases, and I knew that whatever happened, I could always go back and get a good job in New York, working at a law firm or doing legal work. So it gave me a degree of financial freedom, even though I basically spent most of my career as a government employee and I didn't have money. I didn't necessarily need to please anyone to be able to go back and still be able to feed my family.
What happens to a political society, to a democracy, when we stifle or bribe or shoot the sheriff?
When I had my incident with the assistant secretary, that my deputy, who had come down from me, was another former federal prosecutor who did narcotics work, said to me, Kevin Pawlowski, and he said to me, Neil, you were just offered the bullet or the bribe, the gold or the lead. And what he was referring to was a society just like that, which was the Colombia back in the day when Pablo Escobar and the drug kingpins really controlled society. And he was referring to is that basically to corrupt society, Escobar would go to a magistrate or a police officer, a police chief, a politician, and say, you have two choices. You can either take this giant pile of money and do my bidding, or you can get the lead, a bullet in your head. And Kevin was joking that I just received the Washington white-collar equivalent of the gold or the lead. And it was funny at the time, but that's kind of what happens in a society where the rewards and incentives are, again, nobody's getting shot in the head, thank goodness, but it's a breakdown of the system. And in some ways it creates this false illusion that there are people out there looking out for the interests of taxpayers. The checks and balances that are built into the system are operational when in fact they're not. And what you're going to see and what we are seeing is that there'll be a breakdown of those governmental institutions. And you'll see governments that continue to have policies that feed the interests of, and I don't want to get cliched, but the 1% or the 0.1% to the detriment of everyone else.